Hello, I'm the Pink Phantom, and this is my podcast. Join me as I delve into the world of games and gaming, and especially old school RPGs. Together, let's voyage into the astral realm and check out my Phantom Thoughts. In this episode, we hear from BJ from the Arcane Alienist podcast. I continue exploring the Foundation solo world building game, and we continue our dungeon delve, our quote unquote live dungeon delve in Tales of the Dragon Slayers. So let's get to it.
Hey, Phantom, it's BJ. I have enjoyed everything you've done this month for RPG Day. Congratulations on making it through the month. I have been particularly entertained when you've done character voices in character. I think you have a future as a voice actor if you choose to do so. But man, if I was the game master and you were the player, I think you would get bukus of bonus XP for slipping that dad joke into your legend about the night surprise. Just you didn't even see it coming. That just to end on that was awesome, dude. So take care. I'll talk to you later.
Well, thank you for your kind words about RPG a day. I've really kind of enjoyed it this time around as well. I enjoyed it last time. It's a neat little creative exercise. And yeah, I couldn't resist. I feel like I've done the surprise thing somewhere in the 100 podcasts or so that I've done. But yeah, I just couldn't resist. And thank you for the feedback. Previously in Foundations, a world building game, solo world building game, the card I picked was Magical Winds, and it had a couple of choices, and one of them, the one I picked was mark a land where magic flows in abundance. And on my map, I looked at where I had one for sure very strong magic point, the tomb of the unknown, forgotten undead ruler on the southern edge of some mountains. And I had a civilization in a bay that, and the coastal areas around it, that, based on one of the previous cards, the encroaching ice would have been pushing into. So my response to this prompt was, as the over-encroaching ice advanced, the Malar feared for their city in the Bay of Kongor. The leaders charged the arcanely gifted among them and their priesthood with creating an artifact in the bay to keep the waters warm and free of ice. After a generation, it was completed. When it was fully charged, there was an interaction between it and the tomb of the undead ruler at the southern edge of the mountains to the southeast. As times marched on, the waters, plains, and mountains between the 2 points began to twist and evolve, becoming distorted by the powerful magics. Creatures, peoples, and even the lands themselves were changed. Monsters were birthed. Trees and mountains moved of their own accord. Waters changed and flowed in strange ways. So that was my response after I sat down and thought about it for a while. So the next card is the old gods describe an early form of worship among the prehistoric peoples. So I'm going to go back to the first people I created, the Suvaria, who were a group of nomads living in the northeast corner of the continent on an area of large plains bordered to the mountains, mostly to their southeast, to their southeast, and a little to their east. To their west, southwest, and west. They, with the change in the temperature, they would not have been affected as much by the ice. The ice would have flowed up from the south, and the northern edge of the ice would have been out in the ocean away from them, but the southern edge would have come up through part of the continent and came to a stop right below the mountain range that lies to their south and southeast, and with peoples where they traded and where that empire had existed with the undead ruler. So the early form of worship, I think, for them would have been, even early on, just entreaties to their gods to continue to bless the land with abundance. There would have been a lot of rituals for things like harvesting crops, for for the creatures on the plains, particularly the homelar, the six-legged cattle that they depended on so much. They may have even treated them like gods. I think there would have been some godlike qualities to that creature. There'd have been a reverence where they're not just wholesale slaughtered, but there is ritual with their butchery when they have to kill one for its the parts of its body that they use to sustain themselves as a people. And they would have done the same with uh, the the crops, for lack of a better term, that they seed as they go along and that they harvest as they come back through, with the very waters that they depend upon as they journey from place to place to sustain themselves and the creatures around them. There'd been a reverence and an entreaty to the gods to continue to keep these things abundant so that their people may be abundant and thrive. And as the temperatures around them change, particularly in the southern part of their range, they would have become even more intense. And when the ice finally stopped advancing, that would have been viewed as, success, and that would have been viewed by probably the people who were involved, the priesthood and the shamans, would have been viewed with even more awe that they were able to speak with the gods and halt this sort of threat to them that, if the ice had continued to advance, may have ended their way of life and the entirety of their people. As the climate changed around them, there may have been the development of some rather intense sects that would have resulted in perhaps sacrificing of the peoples to keep the land sustained. Something that you hear along the lines of, that we talk about along the lines of the mythology of some of the Central American deities. And this may have arisen a conflict between those who were adherents of the previous, more peaceful religion, more coexisting religion, coexisting with the lands and with each other, that was necessary to keep that balance so that they didn't overwhelm the land with their numbers and with their needs, and at the same time they can continue to grow and develop as peoples, not become stagnant. And those who thought that more intense and more powerful actions were needed to keep the land abundant. So let's do one more here. Land of Titans. In the world existed great behemoths whose power could devastate entire legions. This also has a choice of prompts. Mark a region where behemoth creatures live, describe the people who've adopted this area, or mark a point on your map in which dangerous monsters emerge. And I'm going back to that magical area where I said that the land itself moves. I mean, what could be more terrifying than a mountain that uproots itself and drags itself along the landscape, with the devastation that would probably reap simply from its moving, even without maybe intelligence to it? And what if there is intelligence to it, where it considers itself a god, or it is a god, and the people who are most vibrant in their worship of it, they are spared and others are not? And the response would be, to a large extent, vacating the area, especially if a lot of these creatures that are moving around are insensate to what they're doing. There's not any guiding intelligence to it. It's just devastation every time they get up and move. An entire forest gets up and moves, or a lake slurps along the ground, suffocating all creatures within its wake because there's nowhere to breathe when it just comes inundating in. It's like a flood that can go uphill and downhill and spread out and then gather itself into a large column of water, and there's no escaping it because it just flows constantly. But there would also be those who would seek to harvest that power, who would seek to control it, maybe through arcane means, because this is an area where the arcane magic is very strong, or maybe beseeching their own gods to reach down and inhabit these areas and control them for the sake of their people. This could lead to wars of gods reaching down to take control of these resources for their own means, supporting their own peoples or supporting their own causes. So I think the people would have this intensity of belief, that have this intensity of those that stayed the intensity of trying to be in control, either directly or through their gods. And it'd be almost a fervor among them. And it would probably mark them and change them as well in this magic infested region. And meanwhile, you'd have some of these monsters would probably seek out other monsters to claim their power, to inhabit them or to consume them and take their power for their own. So you'd have battles of intelligence monsters, and you'd have the attacks of the more animalistic monsters. And then above it all, here comes a mountain, here comes a lake, and everything is subsumed by that. All right, let's try one more because we'll end on something that I can work on in the break maybe. All right, this one is Blood and Sand. Harsh deserts and badlands emerged a nomadic people who live alongside the migratory beasts that inhabited these areas, create a nomadic culture or species of the desert. So this may end up being an offshoot of the Suvaria, or it could be a group of peoples that are different that began in an area that was rendered into a badlands by this magical attack. So I think that's a good place to stop and for me to work on it and think on it sort of offline. So thank you for listening. And now, more from my solo AD&D RPG campaign, Tales of the Dragon Slayers. So it's still day 120. The party had explored for basically about 5 hours time-wise before they were exposed to some gas that caused their clothes and some of their non-magical belongings to corrode and start to disintegrate. And so they retreated back to their living area to get a meal, basically middle of the day or so, and resupply, get new clothes, get some new gear to replace some of the gear that had been damaged. And they decide that they're going to continue with the dungeon delve since they've only spent a few hours doing the delve. And usually I've had them doing a delve between 10 and 12 hours. Once we hit that 10-hour mark, it'll look for kind of a natural stopping point. But while they are back toward the occupied area of the keep, they discovered that the queen giant ant has decided now is the time to move. So Katya and Sven and Edgar elect to stay to oversee that. Katya, because what makes this giant queen so special is she has psionic abilities, and Katya is the only person in the group to have psionic abilities. Sven, because he has kind of a rapport with the queen. The queen contacted the party through him. He has kind of a good feeling for what she's doing, what she's up to, and can serve as kind of a mode of communications and monitoring. And Edgar, because he, is kind of a natural moving a group of natural beings to another area to be able to survive and have resume their natural flow of the world. Even though this is a little different group with the queen having psionic abilities, and also because if something were to go wrong, his spell entangle could really serve to help give the party an edge. So they won't be with the group. So the group that we'll be exploring will be Sir Gus the Paladin, Bernie the fighter, magic user thief, Elvin fighter, magic user thief, Harl and Quinn, the two human rangers, and Prier and Michael, two human fighters. So not much in terms of spell casting with the group, other than Bernie, and not much healing beyond Sir Gus's lay on hands ability, although they do have one healing potion among the group. And of course, they have some men-at-arms in tow for any prisoners that they need taking control of, or any groups that they run across that they need to bring back to the keep proper or to escort out of the keep, depending on what kind of group it is. One other minor change I'm going to take to my process is, since they did encounter dwarves on this level previously, when they had been exploring kind of a limited upper level and they encountered orcs first thing, I increased the chance of them encountering orcs if it was a previously encountered group that they were going to have. So that'll be the same thing with the dwarves. Before I just said it was always going to be orcs. Since the dwarves are friendly, that kind of gives them an advantage in situations where there's monsters and treasure that it's not really supposed to be that way. There's supposed to be some antagonism potential in there. I'm going to say the dwarves will be more likely, but not necessarily all the time. So that being said, they make their way back through the first level to the chimney up to the third upper level. They climb up there and they head north through the corridor that comes from that chimney into a large room that was one of the dormitories they ran across. They had left off taking a south corridor out of that room and winding their way through, but there's also a north corridor they haven't explored, and since they're right there, they're going to go ahead and go north before returning back to that southern course. So I'm going to go ahead and for this first part where they're marching through an area that they're known, I'm going to go ahead and do the wandering monster check for this first half hour here. And we do have an encounter, a random encounter here. So is it a previously encountered group or not? We'll go 50-50. And with a roll of 58, it is not a previously encountered group. They've run across something else in this upper level. So we'll roll to see what level of monster we have. I've rolled an 8, so that's going to give us a first level type of creature. So that will give us a roll of percentile or 2d10s, depending on whether I go with the Monster Manual 2, Dungeon Master's Guide, or Fiend Folio chart. So let's see what the possibilities are here. So I've got a 70%. So that's going to be 70% or a 7. In the Dungeon Master's Guide, 70% would be piercers. And as I've said before, we've run into those and had some very wicked encounters with those. The Monster Manual 2, which is 2d10. So that would be a 7. That would be gnolls. We haven't run into, I don't believe we've run into those in the dungeon. We have run into those in the world. And the Fiend Folio, no, I take that back. I was looking at the wrong monster level. That would be giant bats. We have run into those one time. They weren't so bad. And then the monster level 1 on the Fiend Folio table, 70%, would be piercers. So piercers, or giant bats. So get out the old D6. So on a 1 to 4, it's going to be piercers. On a 5 or 6, it will be giant bats. And we rolled a 6, so we get giant bats. So going to the Monster Manual entry on that. So is that bat giant or is that giant bat? How did Gary have that listed? It doesn't look like it's bat giant, so I'm guessing it's giant bat. Giant? Nope. Where are the giant bats? Did I miss them? Ah, I see the problem. Giant bats are in the Fiend Folio. Let's see here. Giant bats. B is for bat. Bat giant. Number appearing 3 to 18. Let's see here. What does the chart say, though? The chart says 1 to 4. But this is a first level creature on the third level, so it'll be 3 times that many. So 3d4. So 4, 5, and 8. So a total of 8 giant bats. Unless, of course, it is their lair, which would be 3 to 18. So their lair is 50%. Wow, 50-50 chance. You don't see a lot for lairs, 50%. 59, it's not their lair. So it is just the 8. Just the 8. Okay, let's see. Bats. These creatures, giant versions of the carnivorous variety of the ordinary bat, with bodies 3 feet long and a wingspan of 5 to 6 feet, dwell in dark caverns, usually underground. In flight, they emit a high-pitched whistling sound, a navigational device. They are highly maneuverable. Anyone that with a dexterity of less than 13 who fires a missile at a flying giant bat does so at -3. For purposes of aerial combat, they're maneuverably class C. The creatures must land, usually on its victim, to attack with its bite 1 to 2 or 1 to 4 points of damage. 1% of victims get rabies. Okay. And only 10% of giant bats are of the 1 die hit variety. So 1 to 4 hit points or 1 die. So let's see if we got any of those in this group. So we got 8 of them. So number 1 is not. Number 2 is not. Number 3 is not. Number 4 is not. Number 5 is not, but it was close, 15%. Number 6 is not. Number 7 is not. And number 8 is not. So none of these are all 1 to 4 hit points. So I'm just going to roll 1 to 4 for the group. And they got 3 hit points each. All right. So, did they surprise the party? Is the party surprised? And on a 3, they are not. Are the bats surprised? On a 5, they are not. So no surprise. And so these are non-intelligent creatures. So probably the party being up here before disturbed them. And so I think they're going to be pretty aggressive here. The let's see, where do they land in terms of attacking? So on the attack matrix, they will probably fall. Let's see, it's all 1d4. A d6, a d8 is the standard hit die. So they would go be probably up to 1 minus 1 category. So they would need a 20 or better to hit anyone with an armor class of 1 or more. And that is most of our group, I believe. Let's see here. Michael and Pryor and Bernie and Sergus and Harl and Quinn. Yeah, they're all at least 0 or better. So these things are going to need a 20 to hit them. They are themselves armor class 8. Wow, armor class 8. So they will be very hittable by this group. Yes, everyone will be hitting on a 12 or better. So this may not last long. Let's see here. So for the bats initiative, they roll a 4. The party rolls a 4. So simultaneous initiative. So let's roll for the bats first here. We're going to go 1 on each, and then we'll double up on some guys. So against Sir Gus, that's a miss. Against Bernie, that's a miss. That was an 18 and a 5. Harl, 11, miss. Quinn, 3, miss. Prayer, 20, that's a hit. Michael, 11, that's a miss. And then we'll see here. We got another one targeting Prayer. A 2, that's a miss. And we've got one targeting Harl. 16, that's a miss. So the only hit is against Prayer. So that's going to be 1 to 2 points of damage. That's going to be 2 points of damage to Prayer. So he is down to 1 hit point because he only has 3. All right, so now the party swinging through. Sir Gus takes a swing. He's at a +4. And with an 18, he hits easily. And with his damage bonus, that's a dead bat. Bernie, he's at a +6. With a 15, he hits, and same thing with him. Harl takes a swing at a +4. He rolls a 14. That's a dead bat. Quinn takes a swing at he's just +1, but he rolls an 18. See here, with his damage, he's +1 damage. He could potentially not kill one, depending on the roll. But he rolled a 5, so that's a dead bat. Prayer swings at one of the 2 guys attacking him at +2. With a 7, he misses. So I guess getting bit kind of distracted him. Michael, with a +4, rolls a 5 and misses. So that is round 1. Let's see if Prayer gets rabies from this. 1% chance. Rolls a 42%. All right, so that's good. All right, second round. The bats roll a 4. The party rolls a 4. A lot of 4s there. All right. So we've got 4 bats left. We know the ones attacking Prayer and Michael were not killed, so here's the 2 on Prayer, a 7 at 12, Michael a 10, and say Bernie a 12. All right, so the party. Sir Gus, 16, that's a hit. That's another dead one. Bernie, that's a 14. That's another dead one. Harl, that's a 7 plus 4 is 11. That's a miss. Quinn, 2, that's a miss. Prier, 3, that's a miss. Michael, 7 plus 4, that's a miss. And then Bernie gets a second swing because of his specialization. 12, that's a hit. That's a dead one. So there's 1 bat left. The bat, a 3. The party, a 6. Say this is one of the ones on Prayer. We'll give him another swing. 15, he hits it. And with his damage bonus, that'll be enough to kill it. So 8 dead giant bats. Prayer gets bit and does not contract rabies. Party takes a little rest and then goes to the north corridor. 30 feet up from the room, they find 2 doors, one to the west, one to the east. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Evens west, odds east. It's a 4, they go west. And Bernie listens, and he does not hear anything. And if there was something behind there, well, he would have heard it. So I know it's a hallway, so I know there's not anything to hear for. So Gus to open the door, and with a 5, he just gets it. This hall goes west 30 feet and ends with a door to the north. So same thing, Bernie listens. He doesn't hear anything, and he wouldn't have if there's anything there. Gus on the door, opens it easily, and they open it into another hallway. It goes both west and east. So again, we'll say evens west, odds east. It's a 2, so we're going east. I'm going west, I'm sorry. We go west 30 feet, and we come to a river. There doesn't appear to be any way to cross it. While the rest of the party takes a little rest, Bernie straps on his wings of flying and goes across and doesn't find anything on the other side. It's just a river with rock walls going as far as he can see. So the party backtracks, goes back east in the same corridor. They go 30 feet, and they come to a 40-foot by 40-foot room. And it's time for another random check. And we get another random creature. We're hitting on them today, buddy. All right, 50% chance that it's a known group. 96, it is not a known group. So we're going back to our charts. So which level are we going to roll on? I get a 13. 13 means that we're rolling on the level 2 charts. So level 2, get my percentiles or 2d10s, depending on the chart. And I've rolled either an 18 or a 9. So 18 at DMG would be, 18% would be a character. So that would be some sort of a character. On the Fiend Folio, that 18% would be a character also. And on the Monster Manual 2, that 9 would be giant centipedes. So again, we'll do the same thing. 1 through 4 on this die, and it's some sort of characters. On a 5 or 6 of giant centipedes, it's a 1. So we have encountered essentially an adventuring group. So the way this works is, reading from the DMG, there will always be from 2 to 5 characters in a character group with men-at-arms or henchmen to round the party out to 9. Roll d4 and add 1 to the result in order to find the number, and then dice on the character subtable to find the profession of each, ignoring rolls which are contradictory or exceed the maximum number. The number of characters subtracted from 9 gives the number of men-at-arms or henchmen. The level of each character will be equal to that of the level of the dungeon or the level of the monster, whichever is greater. We are on the 3rd level, so it will be level 3 characters. So, rolling 1d4 plus 1, and 4 plus 1 is 5. So, we're going to have 5 3rd level characters. And we may miss those guys that are escorting the ants. All right, so let's see what we get here. We get a 21, that's a fighter. And a 29, that's a fighter. We get an 18, that's a druid. Okay, so we got 2 fighters and a druid. Let me start writing this down. Fighter, fighter, druid. We roll 71. That's a magic user. And finally, a 33. That is another fighter. So 3 fighters, a druid, and a magic user. All right. And then, of course, we will have 4 men-at-arms to round out the group to 9. All right, we will have, let's see, flipping through here. Race and multi-class. It is suggested that non-human characters and henchmen be 20% of the total. If the profession of the character or henchman is limited, very limited, about 50% of non-humans will have 2 professions, 25% of those will have 3. So let's roll and see. So 20%, that would be one of the 5 multi-class, one of the 5 class characters, and probably one of the 5 men-at-arms. So I think the druid would be hard to be a multi-class. So let's roll 1d4 and see which of the others is the other different race, and then we'll see if they're multi-classed. 1, 2, or 3 will be one of the fighters. 4 will be the magic user, and it's one of the fighters. And so, what is the race? We shall roll on the chart. It's a 96%. It's a half orc. Woo! Half orc. 50% chance to be multi-class. And with a 0-1, I would call that a resounding multi-classed half orc. So let me go to my player's handbook here, because I think half orcs are pretty limited. I think they're limited to fighter thief as far as classes. Let's see, half orcs. Half orc. 10% half orc. A half orc character can become a cleric, a fighter, a thief, or an assassin. Is also possible for half orc to operate in 2 classes with cleric fighter, cleric thief, cleric assassin, fighter thief. So we know it's a fighter, so it's either going to be a cleric fighter or a fighter thief or a fighter assassin. Okay, interesting. Wonder if there's a chart for that. Let's have a look. I don't see one off the bat in this group. Well, let's see. Yeah, I don't see just a random. I may just have to roll among those types and see. Let's see if one of the other random charts has it. The Fiend Folio. I think it had some. Let's see what it says about characters. Looks like. Nope, it doesn't look like it has anything regarding race or class. And the Monster Manual 2 just says CDMG. I believe there's a roll that you do for alignment, but I think did I pass over it? Because I've used it before, because I know I've come up with parties before. They've been different kinds of alignments. That was how we got MacLeod and Prier, because they were a lawful good party. Ah, I see. We have to roll on the chart in the Dungeon Master for non-player characters. Okay, that explains it. All right, so first let's determine what the half-orc character is going to be. So we got fighter thief, fighter assassin, or fighter cleric. So that's 1d6, 1 or 2 thief, 3 or 4 assassin, 5 or 6 cleric. A 5. So it's a fighter cleric. Half orc. So cleric fighter, half orc. All right, so alignments. On the alignment chart in the non-player character section, it's a D10 for alignment. All right, so for our half orc, I'm thinking that the half orcs have to be something, but it doesn't say in the player's handbook that they have to be specific alignments. I was thinking that half orcs always had to be evil, but it doesn't say. So I guess since they're PCs, they'll let them choose. All right, so D10. So the half orc is on a 3 lawful evil. Human fighter, neutral, human fighter, chaotic evil. Ugh. Okay. Druid has to be true neutral, and magic user neutral good. Okay, I don't think those are compatible lines. I don't think you can have neutral good and chaotic evil all on the same team. Let's look at the druid entry in the player's handbook. I don't think they have that many restrictions in terms of what they can be around, but we shall see with the druid. The druid is a subclass. Clerics, they're the only absolute neutrals, viewing good and evil chaos. Law and chaos is balancing forces. It will be noted druids are more attuned to nature. It doesn't look like will be that they only have to associate with certain types of characters. I guess since they are true neutral, don't have a problem with anybody. So I don't think the chaotic evil and the lawful evil and the neutral good would all do well together. So let's which of those 2 of those 3 are going to have to change. The neutral fighter and the neutral druid should be fine with anybody. All right, so we'll do high low on with these D10s. All right, the 2 lowest will change. All right, so for the half orc gets a 10. The fighter gets a 7, and the magic user gets a 7. So they'll both change to lawful evil. So we've got a lawful evil fighter, a lawful evil magic user, a lawful evil half-orc cleric fighter, and then a neutral fighter and a neutral druid together. Let me look at the druid entry again. That doesn't seem right. Nope, again, I'm not seeing it. If I'm missing something, folks, let me know. All right, so let's see what's going to happen with this group. So we've got a neutral and evil mixed group, and we've got our lawful good, neutral good, goody two shoes group here. So we're going to have to go to our reaction table here, and we're going to suffer some penalties here because of the differing alignments. Now, so let me get to that section of the DMG where it mentions alignment factors. 2 places removed, minus 15%, 3 places removed, minus 35%. Lawful evil is 2 places removed from lawful good. So at minus 15%, but with Gus as the spokesman, it's a plus 30%. But first, let's roll for surprise, because we need to do that, because these guys, see what kind of reaction they have. Is the party surprised with a 3 there or not? Is the lawful evil neutral party surprised? With a 2, they are. So the party has 2 segments to act. So they're going to attempt to talk to them, to let them know, hey, this is our keep. We're going to have to escort you out of here. So now we roll a reaction, and it's going to be at a plus 15, because Gus is plus 30% because of his charisma, but minus 15% because of 2 places removed alignment-wise. And, whoa, that is a 22 plus 15 is 37%, uncertain but 55% negative. So we're going to roll again. And that is a 22%. So that is a negative reaction. So I'm going to have to roll up some characters. We're going to figure out how they're positioned. We're going to figure out how this is going to go, because the party has 1 surprise segment to act. And then it's going to be on initiative. But that will have to wait until next time. The opening theme of this podcast was Strength of the Titans, and the closing music is Late Night Radio, both from Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com, licensed under Creative Commons by Attribution 4.0 license. If you have any thoughts or feedback, you can get in touch with me by leaving me a voice message on my Google Voice number, 864-209-1441. That's 864-209-1441. Or through SpeakPipe at www.speakpipe.com/Phantom Thoughts. That's www.speakpipe.com/Phantom Thoughts. Or you can send me a message or an audio file on Discord, where I can be found the Pink Phantom, or through email, phantomthoughtspodcast@gmail.com. That's phantomthoughtspodcast@gmail.com. I don't have to play or read your feedback on the podcast if that is not your preference. Just let me know.